And what comes now is to talk about hell. To talk about because what I said before, you know, when you sell your soul, when you sell your soul to the devil, then that means that, I mean, this is the image. Yeah, this is the archetypical story. Is that you have this glamorous, rich, famous life, you know, like totally ego, you know, it's like the peak performance of negative you know, of separation identified ego. And when you're not aware, you know, when you're not aware that you're identified with a falsehood, and that this is, and that, you know, at the end you're gonna have to pay, then, you know, it can be, you can have a grandiose time. You know, you can roll, you can surf on that ego and have a grandiose time until reality check. You know, until reality hits you, because it's a false dream. It's yeah, it's a false dream, and your true self, until your true self knocks on your door. You know. When that time, when the time is, you know, when the time is right, when the true self, when the non-physical part of you, you know, it also has a form, but non at this density, you know, part of you, the multidimensional self, when on that level somewhere, it's like, okay, it's enough, you've separated yourself far enough, now come back home, you know. So there's it. I want to make the distinction between. I've made that distinction many times: the fallen ones and the non-fallen ones. So it takes quite a bit. It takes quite a bit to go so far, so far, that your Merkaba reverses, and you and this is what that would be. Hell, hell is, we'll come to that later. Hell can be so many things, you know, just like heaven can be so many things. But it's of course all about feeling bad or feeling good, having a good experience or having a bad experience. Yeah. But now this idea of hell, that when you die, your soul eternally is in a miserable, horrible, you know, suffering place. That's not the case, and we have to clarify this. And then, yeah. So the true fallen ones, not the falling ones, but the ones where the Merkaba has reversed, so that when they had left their body, their souls and their light bodies have become so dense, so dense, heart chakra so closed, that they do not have the power to reincarnate. Because that only happens to the heart structure. The first cell that is created for this body, for all bodies, is that first cell of the heart, where the soul of that, the light part of, you know, the living essence, light part of that life form incarnates into, is that quantum of light in the heart structure. And so they've lost that much. They lost so much light that they cannot reincarnate. So now what happens? Because you can only ascend. Okay. I was gonna say you can only ascend in a body, and that's really what that word means. Ascension is you take your body with you. The other thing is that if you are not fallen and you die, and you know, you're in that cycle of reincarnation, that you go. You see, this is not black and white. This is so complex. So if you fell during your time here, okay. So if during your time, so the soul before it incarnated had a certain frequency, and depending on what the plan is, to do in this life. So let's say in a lifetime your frequency actually dropped, your consciousness actually went, your soul was squeezed out, the heart chakra actually closed. So what happens then when you died? You go to hell. So it's like this. You will experience according to your mind, according to your vibrational makeup. You will experience when you die. At the same time, of course, when the soul leaves the body, it's liberated, and it will, normally what happens is it will remember. This is what normally happens. When there has been so much trauma and so much density and so much darkness that you're already in hell, so to speak. Yeah, you're already in misery, and then you die. Then what can happen is a couple of things. What can happen is, for example, those are ghosts. Ghosts are they're out of space and time, but they still show up. It's like it's not done yet. It's like they're so stuck in their minds, in a certain mindset, that it keeps them locked into a certain place and repeating. But it's really their consciousness that is stuck. And also there, even though for us here perceiving ghosts, there are records of ghosts that have been there since 300 years or so, But that ghost doesn't have that sense of 300 years. And it takes the time it takes until it sees the light, until it remembers, and it's going through its own experience. And it's trying to, whatever that was that keeps it stuck, it's trying to resolve that. And of course, we can help. I mean, that's the thing, it's not an accident why we come across these kind of things. And how can we help? We help through our the light in our hearts. We offer, we can remind them. I don't know why this is making me, we can remind them of who they are. We can remind them of the light that they are. And of course, this is what we can do for each other. I don't know why I'm crying. And we can do this for ourselves, we remember. So there may be a time where we're still, after we drop our bodies, if so much density has been amassed and the heart chakra is closed so far, there can be this time of healing. And then there's also, if it's not a ghost, if it makes it to the other side, or even if it's still in the bardo space, it's all there to resolve. Everything is there to resolve. And it's just like I said before with these dark energies, or these exposures, or these not disclosures, no. But, when the darkness gets exposed and it comes into our field, into our awareness, and we feel it, we feel the darkness, it's also, that's a part of resolve. It's a part, that's what, when it passes through our feeling, when we're open, it just passes through our feeling, and that's the resolve. And so this is one stream or one pixel of the picture where it gets resolved, where the picture can come clear. And so yes, also the movie What Dreams May Come portrays this very nicely. So this woman who committed suicide because she was just so, yeah, too much had happened to her. She lost her 2 children and her husband. And then in the movie, her husband, so her 2 children and her husband, they died first, and then she committed suicide. And in the movie, it's the husband on the other side. They were also still, on that other side, everyone, having their experience, how everyone's going to have a different experience according to your vibration and your mind, and of course the soul plan. And so the husband gets drawn to his wife. He gets drawn and he realizes that she's stuck in a bad place. And this is so beautifully depicted, how she's stuck in that bad place because she died in such a bad place, bad place. Well, so feeling so much pain. Yes, exactly. Feeling more pain than she could handle, than she was able to make space for and feel and allow. Yeah, because she, at that time when she took her life, she didn't have the greater picture to put it in a greater picture. She didn't have that knowing of who she really was, of her soul. Yeah, that never is in any movie, because it wouldn't be, that's a whole other story. That's no drama, that's not a drama. That's where we come out of drama. Yeah. And so the husband, this is, by the way, played by, what's his name? I can't even remember his name now. Yeah. The funny guy. Yeah, okay. So when he comes across, so he finds his wife, makes his way through there. And because his soul had already seen the light, he remembered it, and he knew that, he knew it's all in consciousness. It's all in vibration. So when we come back to our hearts, when we remember, then everything around us changes. So he got through to her and got her out, because he reminded her, and then she he reminded her of who she was. And of course, in that movie, because we're not really here connecting with a higher dimension or with soul. It's the soul in the bardo. So this is actually a very good depiction of where the soul doesn't completely remember itself in unity consciousness, and still, that's when it can get stuck in that 4th dimensional bardo place. And when he comes, he reminds her of her and him, and then she recognizes him, and the heart opens, and then she meets her children, and then she's like happy again, and she can come out of that hell, So, does hell exist? I just know, I remember, that there is that worldview of people being afraid of hell, and actually children being made afraid of hell. I know this from growing up, and there was some people around me that had that belief, and they told me that, and it felt so bad, but it never had an impact on me, because it couldn't stick with me. I couldn't believe it. It was like, it didn't scare me at all. Yeah. I mean, I was very, very afraid as a child, at night. I was always, in that time, in that place, I was afraid of yeah, I could say monsters, but it was like vampires. I was afraid of vampires. But it was like in the unconscious. It was just like in the daytime, yeah, it wasn't there. And I would even feel so good. I loved as a child on my own. You know, I'm like 5 years. I'm 5 years old. I'm 6 years old. I'm 7 years old. This is my age, and I loved to go to the cemetery. You know, in our little village, where there were old trees and there was an old house adjacent, and all these graves were very old, and to just look at the lives that were lived, and just imagine maybe, you know, what, you know, who lived there, what kind of life did they live. But it was more than anything, it was the little candles, it was the atmosphere. It was so peaceful, and I loved going there by myself and just sitting there. And then one day, a girl came, and this is how it often happens with children that are very, very, very open and sensitive, and still also in that sense haven't been exposed to darkness. That those children that have been exposed to darkness, coming across children that are still kind of like a more of a clean slate, it's like they have to share that. They have to share that darkness. You know, they have to feel like they have to. It's, you know, it's almost like they can't help themselves to scare the children. You know, to tell their scary stories, and then scare the children, and they get a kick out of it. It's because, oh God, I mean, this is going into that mechanism. That's like a video of its own, and I didn't want to go there. But after that, after she told me some scary stories, I couldn't go to the cemetery anymore. You know, she told me about and funny wise, it scared me. That kind of not that I believed it in that sense, because hell didn't scare me when the woman told me about hell, and then you go to hell. You know, like if you don't accept Jesus as your savior or something, you go to hell or something like that. And I never believed in hell, but when this girl told me ghost stories, anyways, it scared me. And maybe it's more the vibration, I don't know. And then I couldn't go there anymore. It was very sad. And this is, yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to say about hell is, you know, there's really never anything to fear. There's really never a hell to fear, because in any moment, whenever that moment comes, when we remember our light, we're out of hell, and we turn around to ourselves. And the thing is, why is there such a fear to come back to the light from those that are falling? Because they have to face their pain. They have to face their density. They have to, you know, all that density, all that separation that was created within their soul, all that split off energy, all those soul fragments that were densified into the lower frequencies, that were split off, that were, you know, feeding into demonic attachments, demonic entity attachments. Again, this sounds like something to be afraid of. It's not. It's like, are you afraid of? Very similar is like when we have viruses in our body. You know, is that something to be afraid of? Or if we have cancer, is that something to be afraid of? It's really the same thing. If we understand it, If we know what it really is, it's nothing to be afraid of. We realize that it is nothing to be afraid of, because cancer can be healed. Anything can be healed, you know. And if for some reason you know this and you're not afraid, and you have some kind of illness that then you should die of, even though you tried everything and you believed that you could heal and so forth, okay, then that was the ticket out, you know. Then that was your time to leave, and that was your ticket out. So you know, that most of the time we have illnesses, or we have these it always has a purpose. Yeah, it's either your ticket out, or it's to wake up. It's a reality check. You know, it's an expression on the physical level of something that has been there vibrationally in your mind, in your belief, in your emotions for a very long time, and it's time to deal with it. And then when we deal with it on a physical level, then it also we deal with it on an emotional level. But then in a way that we can handle it, that it can be resolved, you know. So I say in any moment we can turn around, but of course we first turn around when we're ready. And what about those that are never ready, you know, and then they leave their bodies, and yeah, you know, like let's say those that have done so much crime, so much wrong, and they know it. I mean, because the soul always knows what's right and wrong, and where you have, you know, where the split off happened. But even then, even if you don't turn around within the life, which I'm going to talk about in a second, even if it's on the other side, and even if you're caught in, you know, in hell, in the bardo for a while, it's not going to be worse. It's not going to be worse than what the hell you've already experienced. And even if it was, you know, like let's say pact with the devil, time to what is it called? Time to pay up. Yeah, time to pay up. And this can be something that creates a lot of fear in people, you know. Oh, now I have to pay my bills, you know. And that those bills are paid in vibration and keeping me in suffering. But even on that level, we don't get more than we can handle, and it's all a resolve. It's all a resolve. We go as far as we go, as far as we must, until we turn around. And if there's no more turning around, because, you know, that being has become a demonic entity, cannot incarnate anymore, then that demonic entity is going to continue to exist from others, matching energy, negative energy, attach itself to organs, to bodies, to some kind of life forms and energies, as long as it can get negative energy from that life form. So when that life form has healed that part within themselves, then this demonic entity has to either go find somewhere else, or it's going to perish. And this perishing of a demonic entity is really, it's just a dissolution of a complete, first of all these miserable vibrations, they just dissolve when there's nothing more powering it. And the way it dissolves is through our hearts, I think it's okay. What I want to say is that how important it is to know that at any moment you can turn around at any moment, and it may feel like, yeah, but you don't turn around until you're ready. And the reason is because of you have to feel everything that you've done, all the negative emotions that you have, um, that you have done onto others, all the sufferings you have caused onto others. You will have to feel that. And if you can't, then that's, for example, also an illness can do that for you, can resolve that for you. Of course, the hardest thing is also, is to feel, when you realize the wrong that you've done, which you can only do in your heart. So when your heart opens again, that's really the return, is when your heart opens again. Can this happen on the other side? Yes. So a soul can, if it doesn't turn around within the body and start to open up and feel and heal and do this process of owning, owning yourself, owning all those energies. Because when you hurt somebody else, you're also hurting yourself, and that hurt is stuck within you. When you cause a split off, through trauma in somebody else's soul stream, you split your own soul stream off more and more as well. And so coming back is going, that really means the feeling of that which has been split off. That's how it's reeled back in. That's how, but that vibration is not reeled back in. By the feeling of it, it transforms. It goes back to the harmonious spin, not the reverse spin, the original spin, or the original flow. It's not in reverse to the truth. So it comes back to the oneness. And sometimes the pain for some can be just, it's too much. It could be overwhelming to come back while they're still in a body. It doesn't happen. They don't make it. But that doesn't mean that when the souls leave the body, that then they're fallen and they can't reincarnate. That's what I mean. It takes so much, and sometimes over lifetimes to become so split off that you couldn't come back, and that then you are in this bardo existence, have a demonic entity, and are just feeding off of negative emotions. And when you have nothing more to feed, it's not even you. Yeah. So this is like just a nightmare. But that nightmare will be over when when it's time. When it's time. Anyways, time in the bardo is timeless. They don't, it's not a sense of time. And when it's over, because the truth is God, the truth is light, the truth is love, the truth is unity, and it always, a lie and a separation and a suffering can only last that long. Only as long as you chose to, on your multidimensional, higher level, and So when you understand this, you realize that yeah, there is no hell to be afraid of, and this pact with the devil is really, paying up. What that really means is that it is the first step into consciousness. Yes, it is the first step into that consciousness waking up, is that reality check of where the ego, where the negative egoic mind, lived very well for a while. Very well. I mean, yeah, the negative egoic mind, yeah, it was throwing a party and everything. And the pay up is like, oh, on expense of whom? On expense of my soul. Yes, on expense of my soul. And then when the soul comes back in, it's like everything that you've said, that you've done, all, as much as your heart chakra has closed, because that's what it takes, that's what it takes, a closed heart chakra to live out of this fully identified negative ego. Negative meaning all negative emotion, but when you're asleep to that, there can be this time when you're not feeling that negative emotion. It's like the thawing is very painful. The thawing is very painful, and that's how you pay. I mean, the whole time you've already been paying. Unknowingly, you've been feeding the negative, of course. You've been feeding the separation. You've been feeding the fear. You've been feeding the drama, and so forth. And for some, it's like, how can they face that pain when they realize what they did? I mean, I think, for me, this is the worst. This is the hardest thing, is to realize, if, like, let's just say you've done something and you're not even aware of it, how awful that was. You're not even aware of it. And then a part of your system is like protecting you from becoming aware of that, because it's like too much for you to handle. It truly would break your heart to realize what you've done. So for some, this happens first after they die, and there are realms of stages of healing of the soul, before it then chooses another incarnation. But it is never too late. It is never too late, because you are that light, whether you know it or not. I was going to say, do the math. I mean, it's scientifically, you can explain, it's clear. You can explain it on a scientific level. And it's always there. It's always in your heart. That's your truth, that's your happiness, that's your home, that's your well-being. comes also to mind is this scene now in the movie Gandhi, where Gandhi was anyways, there was this man who came to Gandhi and who said, I killed a Muslim child, and I am distraught, you know, I feel horrible about what I've done. How can I ever forgive myself? How can I ever redeem myself? You know? And then Gandhi says, and this is probably, I don't think this is just in the movie, this is probably something that he said, you know, that happened. And he says, well, I don't know if he was, you know, let's just say he was Hindu. So he says, take, you know, it doesn't matter, just two different religions. And he says, take a child, take a Muslim child whose parents have been killed in these fights, and raise it like your own son. So it's like the you know, I mean, forgiving yourself is I mean, that's a whole other that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other topic of forgiveness, which I might do that. Because there's so much misunderstanding there as well. But there is like a way how to, you know, there's always a way back. There's always a way back. And even when you feel, when you're already at that level where you can feel like, I don't know how to forgive myself, which is that I know that better than anything. You know, I have not been able to forgive myself. And that's why I'm going to have to also make a video on forgiveness. Because it's not that we, you know, how can you forgive yourself if it's like, oh, you have to forgive yourself, you know, to come to your well-being, or forgive another to come to your well-being. And it's not like that. It's not like that. You don't have to forgive yourself. You don't have to forgive another person that did something bad to you. It's enough to own all the pain, feel all that pain, and it can take many years of it feels so painful because I can't forgive myself because of this unforgivable, you know, what I did. And to feel that, and then you will slowly come, whether it's what I did or what somebody else did, what will happen is you will slowly come by feeling this, by feeling whatever that the negative emotions is triggering, you know, is held within you. With the feeling of that, with the allowing of that, you begin to see the greater picture. You begin to understand, you know, if this wouldn't have happened, you would not be here, you would not be where you are today. You know, this is a contract. There's always contracts between, you know, these kind of, you know, between us souls. Between souls there are these contracts. Even animals and humans, they have contracts. And it's all there for us to bring consciousness into density and for us to wake up. So this comes when we allow ourselves to feel our pain of victimization or our pain of perpetration. And for me, pain of perpetration is way harder. But I don't want to, you know, it's not, don't want to compare at all. This was just my experience. And we, of course, cut ourselves off from ourselves in this pain. Or in this pain, we are cut off from ourselves because it is based in that traumatic experience. And as we feel the pain, we come back into our hearts, and with that we come back into who we are, and we come back into love. And it's only, we call it self-love because it's the love in our hearts. But it goes in both directions. It's just love. It's love for this, for my own being. And it's love for another being. The heart opens and it's love, always in both directions. And that's how forgiveness actually happens. That's how these negative emotions that are attached to this event, where either we were victimized and then we hold a certain negative emotion towards the perpetrator, or we were the perpetrator and we hold a negative emotion towards ourselves, and we hold ourselves apart from love, because that's what happened in that trauma, is that our heart's closed. And as we come back, yes, to this love, that's what forgiveness is. And it undoes, of course, also it undoes the holding of negativity towards another or towards yourself. Brings us back into the heart. And then that whole role that was played by ourselves or by the other to bring about this trauma, it falls away. It just becomes far memory, but it's not something we think about anymore. It's something that happened, and it just is like it fades away, like a picture that fades in the sun. And that's forgiveness. Because just to say, okay, I forgive you, that's of course not it. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. Sometimes it can be immediately. It can be like a small grudge, and then we realize, let's say we held a grudge towards another because something happened that closed our heart towards them, and then when we come together with them and we talk, or we just realize, and then all of a sudden, oh, I forgive you. It's okay. I forgive you. It's gone. It's like it's gone. That grudge, that holding of negativity, it's gone because we see somehow, we feel them again. Either we feel our love for them again, the truth, or we see, all of a sudden we have this understanding of how they were able to do that. And then it just dissolves it all. But this dissolving and this true forgiving, it really happens by feeling the negative emotions and the opening of the heart. And then that's the dissolution of this trauma. That's the healing of this trauma. And then it's not there anymore, Yeah, and for those where it's just been too much, they've done too much, that they can't resolve it anymore in their physical body, they will do it when they leave their physical body, and it's like it's all, the whole setup is, this is the structure, is consciousness falling asleep to itself and waking back up to itself. And the waking back up can be very, very painful, and that's it can be very, very, and it's very, very scary to the negative egoic mind, because it is its dissolution. But of course, nothing dies because it's not alive. It's a program. It's a false identification. So that falls away. So in that movie that I said before, where the guy who sold his soul to the devil remembers that he sold his soul to the devil, and he looks himself in the mirror and he says, I know who I am, I know who I am. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doomed, it's that moment when you let's say you remember either something terrible that happened to you, like, oh God, I remember feel really, really sick, because it was like you pushed it so far into the unconscious because it was too much for you to handle. So either something that happened to you where you were victimized, or you remember, you remember something that you did. Maybe you never forgot it. But really, this is about something you had forgotten, and that this is about removing the masks. This is about reintegrating yourself and coming back to your soul and healing. So sometimes, these layers of remembering can make us very. First, we have to walk through the remembering. It's just like where we are today in our world, where all the lids are coming off, the masks are falling, it's being exposed, all the darkness is being exposed, and it makes us sick. But this is the first step into healing, is the recognition. And like I also said in my video about you can only get over, because always, people will say, oh, just get over it, get over it. We just have to get over being victims. We just have to get over being victims. And in that video I said, we cannot get over being victims. We have to completely own that victimhood, that victimization, which means we have to completely feel every second where we felt these negative emotions, this where we felt victim, that somebody did us something wrong, and there's like, those energies of pain, it didn't make it through the heart. So they're stuck in our field. So the only way to get over victimization is to get through it, is to completely own it and feel it, allow it. So that means to fully recognize, and not recognize, no, that's different. Fully acknowledge, yes, I was done wrong. Yes, I was a victim. That's the first step. That's a step in. Because saying, oh, get over it, that's denial. That's just, that's not healing it. That's not going to change. It's putting it into the unconscious, keeping it in the unconscious more. Because really what we have to recognize, it's not these words, I was the victim. It's that what we felt is like at the core. Is, how when you get closer and closer and closer to to a sorrow that happened, and at some point you're at that point where it just breaks out of you and you just cry your eyes out, and it's like deep, 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 deep. It's massaging your heart. It's like squeezing your heart. It's releasing. It feels like so much release, release, release. That's the acknowledgement of your pain. That's the acknowledgement of where you did feel like a victim, where you did feel powerless, and you felt hurt. That's the first step. And first, when we own and acknowledge and feel that, we release it. And then we come into the higher frequencies where we can recognize, and that's the recognition part, where we recognize that this was chosen. This was part of the plan. This was a part of this soul's journey, this soul's growth.